If at the end of a war story you feel uplifted, or if you feel that some small bit of rectitude has been salvaged from the larger waste, then you have been made the victim of a very old and terrible lie. There is no rectitude. There is no virtue. As a first rule of thumb, therefore, you can tell a true war story by its absolute and uncompromising allegiance to evil and to obscenity. So what happens is, these guys get themselves deep in the bush, all camouflaged up, and they lie down and they wait, and that's all they do. Nothing else. They lie there for 7 straight days and they just listen. And man, I'll tell you, it's spooky. This is mountains. You don't know spooky till you've been up there. Jungle, sort of, except it's way up in the clouds, and there's always this fog, like rain, except it's not raining. And everything's all wet and swirly and tangled up, and you can't see jack. You can't find your own pecker to piss with. Like you don't even have a body. And Mitchell Sanders and I picked up the baby buffalo. We hauled it across the open village square, hoisted it up, and dumped it in the village well. Afterward, we sat waiting for Rat to get himself together. Amazing, Dave Jensen kept saying. New wrinkle. I never seen it before. Mitchell Sanders took out his yo-yo. Well, that's Nam, he said. Garden of evil. Over here, man, every sin's real fresh and original. In the mountains that day, I watched Lemon turn sideways. He laughed and said something to Rat Kiley. Then he took a peculiar half step, moving from shade into bright sunlight, and the booby-trapped 105 round blew him into a tree. The parts were just hanging there, so Dave Jensen and I were ordered to shimmy up and peel him off. I remember the white bone of an arm. I remember pieces of skin and something wet and yellow. The gore was horrible and stays with me. But what wakes me up 20 years later is Dave Jensen singing Lemon Tree as we threw down the parts. Thank you. I have more in common, as it turns out, with my former enemies, the Viet Cong and NVA soldiers, than I do with anybody down at the American Legion Hall or the VFW or the Kiwanis Boys or the Rotary Club or the Elks Club or the Country Club set. The VC are my people. Why? Nothing political about it. It's just that we experience the same stuff. It's like being in Boy Scouts together, only a really Boy Scouts for juvenile delinquents, that kind of one. All the firepower every which way. To get to know this purported enemy was I don't know, one of the joys of my life. I don't know how to do justice to it, except to say that we cried a lot and we got drunk a lot and we told war stories of the sort I was trying to write about here. No moral. I mean, if you're looking for a moral in a war story, you're plumb out of luck. You're just not going to find morality. You're going to find sort of amoral or immoral, but you're not going to find moral. And they understood that the way I was trying to help you try to feel it a little bit tonight. You hear a story, what do you say? Beyond oh, that's meaningful. And I feel that way about Madame Bovary and Shakespeare. There are times when I don't want to extract meaning and analyze. There are times when I just want to feel the wonder of the sunset of a piece of poetry or a well-made story. The real question is really difficult to answer. One answer is none of it's real. The way with Huckleberry Finn. Yeah, there's a Hannibal, and yeah, there are such things as real rafts, and there are people who leave home, and we know that, you know, Twain grew up there, that's based on a kind of reality of memory. However, when imagination entwines with the real world, it becomes something different that lives in its own dimension and outside of the literal world we all live in. An example that I can give you is that my dad died, now I guess about 2 years ago, something like that. And in the final days and hours of his life, I contemplated taking my dad in my arms and saying, "Dad, I love you." But I didn't. In a story, my dad can sit up from the dead, and he can take me in his arms, and he can say, "That's okay. I know you love me." Well, the first part of the anecdote I just told you is true. I mean, it didn't move me. As you could tell, I just told it to you. The latter part, utterly invented. People cannot sit up from the dead, and they can't say, "That's okay, I know it can't happen," moved me. It's what you can do with invention that to reach through reality and to shape feeling into people, and as Conrad used to say, to help us see. You can see a man sit up from the dead and turn and say, "That's okay, I know you love me." That does something to the heart that nonfiction can't do. So that's one cut at an answer as to the reality issue, is I'm trying to make you feel things that I don't think I could make you feel through writing nonfiction, being literal to my own experience.